The flashbulbs from the paparazzi outside the Plaza Hotel had nothing on the explosion inside the Grand Ballroom. Brooke Harrington, the 38-year-old billionaire fashion designer, whose latest collection had just been unveiled to thunderous applause, froze mid-toast as her eyes locked onto the waitress pouring champagne at the edge of the stage. There, half hidden by a crisp white cuff, was the unmistakable purple bruise circling Liliana's slender wrist, and before the entire room of New York's elite could react, Brooke's voice cut through the applause like a blade. "Liliana, my wife, needs a moment." Gasps rippled across the ballroom like a shockwave. Phones rose in unison, cameras flashing wildly. Liliana's tray trembled, a single glass tipping over and shattering on the marble floor. Brooke didn't wait for security or explanations. She crossed the stage in 3 strides, her custom silk gown whispering against the polished wood, and took Liliana's hand right there in front of 200 influential guests, investors and rival designers. The bruise wasn't from some clumsy accident at the catering job Liliana had insisted on keeping for her own independence. Brooke knew exactly who had put it there, and the knowledge burned like acid in her chest. Security tried to intervene, but Brooke's glare stopped them cold. "She's coming with me." The words weren't a request. Liliana's green eyes met hers, wide with panic and something deeper. A silent plea that said everything they had sworn to keep hidden for 18 months. Their marriage, sealed in a quiet courthouse in Vermont with only 2 witnesses and ironclad NDAs, had been their sanctuary. Liliana, 29 and still carrying scars from an abusive ex who had nearly destroyed her, had begged to stay out of the spotlight. "I don't want your world to swallow me," she had whispered on their wedding night. Brooke had agreed, letting her wife work low-profile catering gigs while Brooke's empire, Harrington Luxe, dominated runways from Milan to Manhattan. But now the secret was out, and the consequences crashed down immediately. Whispers turned to murmurs, then to outright conversations as guests pulled out their phones. Brooke could already see the headlines forming. Billionaire designer's secret wife exposed at gala. Her public image, carefully cultivated as the driven, straight-laced CEO, who dated high-profile male models for optics, was about to implode. She guided Liliana through the side exit, past stunned waitstaff and into the private elevator that led to the penthouse suite reserved for the night. The door had barely closed when Liliana pulled away, rubbing the bruise instinctively. "Brooke, what have you done?" Her voice cracked, the southern lilt she tried so hard to hide slipping through. "Everyone saw. Everyone knows now." Brooke reached for her, but Liliana stepped back, the weight of their carefully constructed walls crumbling around them. Downstairs, the gala continued in awkward chaos, but upstairs the real storm was just beginning. Brooke's phone buzzed relentlessly. Board members, her conservative mother in Connecticut, even her biggest investor demanding an immediate call. Liliana sank onto the velvet couch, head in her hands. "My ex, he found me last week. That's where the bruise came from. I didn't want to drag you into this. I thought if I stayed quiet, worked this job, kept our life separate." Brooke knelt in front of her, taking both hands gently. "You are my wife. I wasn't going to stand there and watch someone hurt you again, not even with words or stares." But even as she said it, the reality settled like lead in her stomach. Liliana's ex, a volatile hedge fund manager named Derek Voss, had a history of threats and now had leverage. The bruise was fresh proof he was closing in. Brooke's company stock, already volatile after a recent supply chain scandal, would tank by morning. Her family, old money New Englanders who barely tolerated her independent streak, would see this as the final betrayal. And the media? They would feast. By the time the first news alert pinged on Brooke's phone, the story had already gone viral. Harrington Luxe CEO comes out as lesbian in shocking gala reveal. Liliana looked up, tears streaking her makeup. "We can't undo this. What if your board forces you out? What if my past drags your name through the mud?" Brooke pulled her into an embrace, the same arms that had held her through countless quiet nights in their hidden brownstone. But this time the hug felt fragile, like it could shatter under the weight of the world crashing down. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, and Brooke knew the first lawsuit threat would arrive before sunrise. The decision had been made in one impulsive moment, but the fight to survive it had only just begun. Morning light sliced through the penthouse curtains like an accusation. Brooke stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, coffee untouched, watching the ticker on her tablet plummet. Harrington Lux shares had dropped 12% in pre-market trading. Her phone vibrated on the marble counter for the 40th time since dawn. Board chair Victor Lang had left 3 voicemails demanding an emergency meeting. This isn't just personal, Brooke. It's a morality clause violation in 3 major contracts. Beside her, Liliana paced barefoot, still in the waitress uniform from the night before, the bruise now a vivid reminder under the sleeve she kept tugging down. We can issue a statement, Brooke said, turning. Frame it as a private matter. No details about Derek. Liliana stopped, arms crossed tight. And deny me? Pretend last night was a joke. The question hung heavy between them. Brooke's instinct screamed to protect the empire she had built from a single sketch in her dorm room at Parsons. 15,000 employees depended on her. But Liliana's eyes, the same ones that had looked at her with trust during their secret vows, now held fear. I left everything behind for you once. My family in Georgia cut me off when I came out. I won't ask you to lose yours. The doorbell chimed. Security announced Liliana's ex had been spotted outside the hotel, camera crew in tow. Derek Voss wasn't subtle. He had already leaked old texts to tabloids claiming Liliana owed him money from their shared past, and that Brooke had stolen her. The first lawsuit filing hit email at 7:15 a.m., a defamation claim backed by a high-powered firm. Brooke's mother called next. Darling, think of the family name. We can spin this as a phase, but only if you distance yourself now. Liliana overheard and walked away to the bedroom, shoulders shaking. Brooke followed, closing the door softly. I won't deny you. Ever. But the words felt like a gamble. By noon they were in the back of a tinted SUV racing to her lawyer's office downtown. Paparazzi swarmed the vehicle at every red light. Inside the conference room, attorney Rachel Morales laid out the grim options. Option 1. Public denial, claim intoxication or misspoken words. Stock rebounds, contracts hold. Option 2. Full confirmation, fight every lawsuit, except the media circus. Liliana's hand found Brooke's under the table, a silent anchor. I won't hide anymore, Brooke said, voice steady despite the knot in her gut. She's my wife. We fight together. The decision triggered immediate fallout. By evening, 3 major retailers pulled their orders pending brand alignment review. Liliana's phone, previously silent except for catering shifts, exploded with messages from old friends and her estranged sister demanding explanations. At their hidden brownstone that night, the first brick crashed through the front window, wrapped in a printed headline. Lesbian billionaire's dirty secret exposed. Liliana patched the glass herself while Brooke called in extra security. This is my fault, Liliana whispered. If I had quit that job, stayed invisible. Brooke pulled her close on the couch, the same couch where they had shared quiet dinners and whispered dreams. No. The fault is with a world that forces us to choose between love and survival. The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Harrington Tower smelled of expensive leather and panic. Brooke sat at the head of the long oak table, Liliana beside her for the first time ever in this building. Victor Lang didn't waste time. Your little performance last night cost us $40 million in projected revenue. Investors are fleeing. We need damage control. Brooke met every stare without flinching. Damage control doesn't include erasing my wife. Liliana sat straight, the bruise faded but the memory raw. She had insisted on coming, even after another threatening text from Derek at 3 a.m. Outside, protesters gathered on the sidewalk, some waving signs about traditional values, others supporting LGBTQ rights. The split was tearing the city conversation in half. Brooke's mother had flown in overnight, waiting in the lobby with a team of PR consultants ready to rebrand her daughter. Liliana squeezed Brooke's hand under the table. Whatever happens, we face it together. The meeting ended with an ultimatum. Issue a joint statement distancing the marriage from the company within 48 hours or face a no-confidence vote. Brooke walked out with Liliana, the elevator ride silent until the ground floor. Then the accident happened. As they exited into the underground garage, a black SUV accelerated toward them, swerving at the last second. Security tackled the driver, Derek's former associate, later revealed to be paid to scare them. Liliana hit her head on the concrete in the chaos, requiring stitches at Mount Sinai. In the ER, Brooke held her hand while reporters camped outside. I almost lost you, Brooke whispered. Liliana, bandaged and pale, managed a weak smile. You can't lose what you fight for. But the hospital bill and the new restraining order paperwork piled onto the growing legal mountain. Back home, Brooke's family staged an intervention. Her mother arrived with her brother, both armed with ultimatums. Sign the statement. Say it was a publicity stunt. We'll support you privately. Liliana stood in the doorway listening. Brooke looked between the woman she loved and the family that had funded her first runway show. I can't. The door slammed when they left. Liliana didn't cry. Instead, she pulled out old photos from their Vermont wedding, the ones no one had seen. Remember why we did this? Because silence almost killed me once. Brooke nodded, but the company stock dropped another 8% overnight. A major lawsuit from a conservative investor group was filed the next morning, citing breach of ethical standards. The pressure mounted like a tightening noose. Liliana's ex escalated, leaking manipulated videos suggesting Brooke had bought the marriage. Tabloids ran daily stories. Brooke's closest designer friend called to say she was losing clients. In the quiet of their kitchen at 2 a.m., Liliana finally broke. Maybe I should disappear for a while. Let you rebuild. Brooke's refusal was immediate and fierce. No more hiding. We face every camera, every courtroom. But as dawn broke, Brooke stared at the ceiling wondering if courage was just another word for self-destruction. Courtroom 12B of the New York Supreme Court buzzed with reporters the morning the defamation suit began. Derek Voss sat across the aisle, smirking behind his legal team. Liliana testified first, voice steady as she described the years of control, the final escape that led her to Brooke. Brooke watched from the gallery, heart pounding, knowing her own testimony would either save or sink them both. The judge had already denied a gag order, so every word streamed live. Outside, crowds chanted both support and condemnation. Brooke's board had issued a public statement of disappointment that morning, accelerating the no-confidence vote scheduled for Friday. During recess, Brooke pulled Liliana into a private hallway. If I lose the company, we still have each other. Liliana's eyes searched hers. But you built that empire from nothing. I won't be the reason it burns. The dilemma tore at them daily now. Family dinners canceled, friends ghosting, Liliana's catering contacts drying up. A second lawsuit landed from a supplier citing reputational harm. Brooke's lawyer warned the combined cases could drag on for years, draining millions. That night, back in the brownstone now guarded 24/7, they sat on the roof terrace under string lights, the same spot where Brooke had proposed with a simple platinum band. Liliana traced the ring on Brooke's finger. Remember when silence felt safe? Brooke nodded. But it wasn't living. A helicopter circled overhead, camera lens glinting. The media had turned their home into a spectacle. Liliana's sister called unexpectedly, offering tentative reconciliation if they kept it private. Liliana hung up gently. No more deals with silence. The next day brought the turning point. An anonymous source, later revealed as a former board ally, leaked emails showing Victor Lang had used the scandal to push a hostile takeover. Brooke confronted him in his office, Liliana waiting outside. You're using my marriage as an excuse to steal my company. Lang smiled coldly. The market doesn't reward weakness. Brooke filed her own countersuit that afternoon for corporate sabotage. The move made national news, splitting public opinion further. Some called her a hero. Others accused her of destroying a legacy. Liliana stood beside her at the press conference, no longer hiding. We're done letting fear decide. But the cost mounted. 3 key employees resigned. Brooke's mother stopped answering calls. In their bedroom that night, Liliana curled against her. Every choice feels like choosing which part of us dies. Brooke held her tighter. The weight of the empire versus the woman she loved pressing down like never before. The no-confidence vote passed by a narrow margin on Friday afternoon. Brooke walked out of Harrington Tower for the last time as CEO, Liliana's hand in hers, paparazzi shouting questions from every angle. The board had offered a severance package laced with a non-disclosure clause about the marriage. Brooke tore it up on camera. Liliana's ex lost the defamation suit that same week, but the victory felt hollow amid the wreckage. Their brownstone went on the market to cover mounting legal fees. Liliana found a new waitressing job at a small cafe in Brooklyn, refusing Brooke's offers of financial help. I need to stand on my own while you rebuild yours. The accident that nearly ended everything came 2 weeks later. Driving back from a late deposition, their car was sideswiped by a vehicle running a red light. Derek's associates again. Liliana's arm broke in 2 places. Brooke suffered whiplash and a mild concussion. In the hospital, surrounded by flowers from supporters and death threats slipped under the door, they made their hardest decision yet. Liliana suggested a temporary separation for safety. Let the heat die down. Protect what's left of your name. Brooke refused through tears. We promise for better or worse. This is worse. But the doubt lingered. A surprise ally emerged. Rachel Morales uncovered evidence linking Derek to corporate espionage against Harrington Lux. The new lawsuit shifted momentum. Media coverage softened slightly as public sympathy grew for the couple fighting both abuse and bigotry. Liliana's family reached out again, this time with genuine concern after seeing the crash footage. Brooke's mother sent a single text. I'm proud of your courage, even if I don't understand it. Small cracks of hope appeared, but the empire was gone. Brooke started sketching new designs in their temporary apartment, a tiny one-bedroom in Queens. Liliana brought home coffee from her shift, the bruise long faded but the memory fueling her quiet strength. They faced each new day with deliberate choices. When a major network offered a paid interview to tell their side, Brooke turned it down. Our story isn't for sale. Liliana agreed. The price of courage was steep, but the price of silence had nearly destroyed them both years ago. As winter approached, they stood together at a small rally for LGBTQ workplace rights. Hands linked publicly. The world was still watching, still judging, but for the first time the decisions felt like theirs alone. Spring arrived with tentative new beginnings. Brooke launched a smaller independent label from their living room, funded by loyal supporters who had followed her through the scandal. Liliana worked full-time at the cafe but took night classes in business, determined to contribute equally. The final lawsuit settled out of court, Derek barred from contact forever. Their brownstone sold, but they bought a modest house upstate with enough land for peace. Family visits remained awkward, yet present. The media moved on to fresher scandals, leaving them scarred but standing. One quiet evening on the porch, Liliana leaned against Brooke, watching fireflies dance. We almost lost everything. Brooke kissed her temple. We almost lost each other too. The choices had cost careers, relationships, safety. Yet they had chosen love every single time the world demanded silence. Liliana's hand found hers, rings glinting in the fading light. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. It was proof that courage carried a price, but silence could cost a soul. Was revealing the truth at that gala the right decision, or should Brooke have chosen silence to protect their future?